Good afternoon. I call to order the September 3rd, 2024 Committee of the Whole for Planning and Public Works. Welcome back from summer vacation, everyone. We're excited to be here. Council members in the room includes Council members Anderson, Nueva Camina, and Forsyth. Council members Field and Salahuddin are online. We do not expect Council President Kritzer to join this meeting. We have 9 items on our agenda today, and we've had a slight change in the order, so we'll be switching 3 and 4, and I'll remind folks as we get closer to that. So item number 1 today is approval of the Redmond Paired Watershed Study contract amendments. Introducing this item, we have Jessica Atlickson.
Thank you so much. I'm Jessica Atlickson. I'm an environmental scientist with Public Works, and I'm really excited to be here to talk about the approval of 3 contract amendments for the Redmond Paired Watershed study. So these 3 contract amendments will allow the Redmond Paired Watershed study to continue through the 10th year of the study. So as a reminder, the goal of this study is to measure the effectiveness of actions taken by the City of Redmond stormwater utility, as well as King County, to restore urban streams at a watershed scale. So these amendments are with King County and Herrera Consulting for the monitoring for the project. And then with the 3rd amendment is with the Washington Department of Ecology for the funding. As a reminder, the funding for this study comes from the Stormwater Action Monitoring, which is a program administered by the Department of Ecology and is funded by Phase 1 and Phase 2 stormwater permittees, including Redmond. So what we are requesting is to be on the September 17th consent agenda. And with that, happy to answer any questions about the study.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. Council recently received some concerns about the streams near the gun club and lead levels in those streams. Is that something that is monitored through this ask?
So Gun Club Creek is not part of the Redmond Paired Watershed study. There's 6 watersheds within the study that was chosen 10 years ago. So no, that is not something that is monitored through this. However, Public Works is working on ramping up stormwater monitoring and creek monitoring because the paired watershed is starting to ramp down. And so that's something I can take back to my coworker.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to see us figuring out what those levels are in that nearby creek, because there's been a lot of concern from that community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. I appreciated the opportunity to read the packet. It's very interesting information. And I just had a clarifying question regarding what I noticed about it was that there was a pretty comprehensive review of potential contaminants in some of the water for water quality. And I was curious that I noticed there was things that are great, like nitrogen, oxygen, copper, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. What I didn't see was mercury. And I was wondering if that is something that would be included, or is it something we would need to amend and add, or how does that get?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the water quality analytes were set 10 years ago when the project started, and we've tried to stay consistent because we do a trend analysis every 4 years. So again, that's something that we can bring up to with our upcoming water quality sampling that we're going to do in the future.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Other questions from the council? Seeing none in the room and none online, council, are there any objections to this item going to consent on the 17th of September? Wonderful. We'll see this one back. Thank you so much, Jessica. Really appreciate your work on this.
Thank you.
Item number 2 on our agenda tonight is the approval of a consultant agreement with BHC Consultations for the lift station equipment upgrades phase 2. Introducing this item will be Steve Gibbs from Public Works. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Steve Gibbs, Capital Construction. This item is for a consultant agreement with BHC for the second phase of the lift station equipment upgrades. This will be working on stations 17, 15, 52, and 53, basically getting new pumps procured and designed into those stations. We're looking for approval of the agreement, $374,770, consent on 917. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Are there questions from the council? My question, and I will get to that page here in the memo, is no questions online. Great. I'll go ahead and ask my question. In the budget memo for this, we've had a significant, I think what we're also doing through this action is also agreeing to the increased budget. Could you speak a little bit to what's going on there? It looks like it's coming in about 3.5 times the original.
I've got Mike Haley online. Mike, you care to take that one?
I think I can. Good afternoon, Council. The number that you're seeing in Attachment A is the new CIP number that you all have been looking at and will be approving at the end of the year. That's my understanding. And we're trying to make use of that number now as we move forward with this design contract.
Great, thank you. Council, any further questions on this item? Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Thank you. Mike, I understand that the original budget was roughly, as Councilmember Stewart had said, roughly a third of it. And now we've more than tripled the cost on it, going from 1 million to 3.5. But in that answer, I wasn't understanding how we got to that point. Could you unpack that just a little bit? Like I understand that this is what's being presented to us, but how did it go from 1 million up to 3.5?
I think originally the 1 million was allocated in the last CIP, and it envisioned 2 pump stations, 2 pump replacements. And in this phase 2, we're actually working on 4 different pump stations. One of them is a significantly larger pump station, which would carry more cost. The actual cost estimate I could share with you at a later date if you'd like. It can help you understand how we got to the 3.5 million.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haley. Council, are there any other questions on this item? And again, the ask is for this one to go to consent on the 17th. Are there any objections to that item going to consent? Okay, seeing none, we will have that one back. We're going to skip now to item number 4 on the agenda, and we're going to stay with Steve here, and I think some new teammates are going to join us. Item number 4 is to approve the agreement with McKinstry Ascension for the Public Safety Building Phase 2 and Sustainability Building Automation Projects.
So I'm joined with one of my new project managers, Amy Kim. She actually has a lot of facilities experience in this, and she'll be helping me with all the hard questions. This is kind of a continuation of our rehabilitation of the public safety building. So we're calling this Public Safety Building Phase 2. It's kind of a midlife replacement for modernization, repairs, and replacement. And we're utilizing a Washington State energy savings performance contracting program. And with that program, we're able to build energy and utility projects with the help of the state. And with that program, we've kind of got improved risk management, efficiency, and we're working with a single entity through design and construction. So we're looking for approval of the McKinstry contract at 109,197 and on 917 for consent.
Thank you so much, Steve. And for the viewing audience, the HVAC system just kicked on, so hopefully some cooler air is coming to the room. I also want to say a huge welcome to Ms. Kim. Thank you so much for joining us. Your colleagues had wonderful things to say about your addition to this project and even making this opportunity possible, so welcome. Council, are there questions? Councilmember Forsyth.
No question, just excited to see us working with McKinstry on something of this scope because their work has been very beneficial and very informative in the past.
Great. I'll go ahead and hop in just with a question to help help the public understand a little bit better. Mr. Gibbs, you mentioned that this process alleviates some of the risk management and all of that. Could you share a little bit more about why it's so cool that we get to do the audit in a sense in this way? Thanks, Ms. Kim.
Thank you very much. So the DES process lets us work with vetted contractors, McKinstry being one of them. And so they've been kind of through a process, rigorous process of being evaluated, making sure that we get good quality. But they also do design, and they take it all the way through construction, and they finish the project, and they come back and measure all of the energy savings that we reap from this project. So there's that kind of risk management where we know what we're getting from the beginning. The audit is the first process, which we're asking for right now to do with this agreement. But after the audit, they will come back with a project, and they'll have a list of efficiency upgrades that we can do, and they'll guarantee a maximum price with that. So we know exactly how much we're paying for all the projects that we're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for telling that story. We appreciate it. Any final questions from the council? Any objections to seeing this item come through consent on September 17th? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Kim. And we will see that item on consent. We're going to move back to item number 3, and Councilmember Anderson is going to excuse herself from the room due to a conflict of interest. Item number 3 on today's agenda is award construction contract to Johansson Construction Company and approve consultant services agreement supplement number 1 to OTAC Incorporated for the Redmond Central Connector Phase 3 project.
This is RCC 3 is what we... Usually I don't need a mic. So RCC3 is what we call this one, and this will be providing a paved trail atop the currently constructed access road that PSC recently constructed. It's got some intersection treatments at 116th as well as some commercial driveways, and then it also has lighting. Our ask is to award the construction contract to Johansson, $5.639 million, and then approve the supplemental agreement with OTAC. We're looking for this also to be on consent on 9/17, and I'm sure there'll be a few questions on this one.
It's one of our favorite topics. Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. So definitely very excited about RCC3, especially as the East Trail representative and getting this online for the full connection of East Trail. The question I had is regarding the design process. We had been talking in this space about what the design implications could be, how we could use potentially different design materials, what the lighting design would look like. Are there opportunities for lights to be turned up in brightness for emergency situations or maintain a lower level for salmon protection? And we haven't had those conversations, so I'm kind of curious where in this process we are as far as, it sounds like we're ready to go, we're ready to break down, we're ready to do construction. Can you just speak to that?
Sure. I've got Project Manager Mike Haley on for this one as well. Mike, do you have some comments on the lighting?
Hi again, council members. Well, let's see. So the lighting was a late addition to the design. I do know that it was added to the design last September. When we did that, we applied the same treatment we used in the Redmond Central Connector Phase 2. These are LED lights, so they can have an adjustment in terms of lighting volume. However, the amount of candle lights we're providing along the trail is meeting a lower standard for trail use. And I guess that's about all I know on the design. It is complete. It is ready to install after we award the construction contract.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that response. I guess I'm just disappointed that there wasn't more design consideration conversation that happened in this space, because we'd been requesting that look back and making sure that we're protecting the salmon habitat that we're working so hard to repair, and for use, especially considering that area is linking a lot of employers So especially in the winter months where lighting could be turned up or down, design elements in the pavers. This was all part of the conversation that we had moving forward. Obviously going to support the project because it's a great project. Just expressing my disappointment in the process.
Other questions from the council? All right, thank you, Mr. Haley. Thank you, Ms. Forsyth. Is there any objection to this item going to consent on the 17th of September? Seeing none, we will have this back on the 17th. Thanks so much, Mr. Gibbs.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, if Councilmember Anderson could rejoin us, we will move on to item number 5 in our agenda. Thank you so much to the staff for your flexibility today. We're going to move to the Planning and Community Development side of the agenda. Item number 5 is approval of a motion to remove reversionary interest from Redmond statutory warranty correction deed. Introducing this item, we have Jeff Churchill and Ian Lefcourt here to tell us more about it. Thanks.
Good afternoon, council members. This afternoon, Ian will brief you on a proposed motion to remove a reversionary interest from the Redmond statutory warranty correction deed. And now you've heard that mouthful twice. It's a significant milestone in renovating the property to help secure affordable housing for seniors in our community. And Ian Lefcourt will share more.
Thank you, Jeff. For the record, hello, my name is Ian Lefcourt. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a senior planner with Long Range Planning. As stated, that mouthful before, the purpose is to remove one specific piece, that reversionary interest, from the Redmond deed. First, we'll discuss the background on the property and the associated funding request, and then move more directly into the component in front of council now. The property is an existing 3-story senior housing project with 32 apartments located in downtown Redmond, just north of Anderson Park. The project serves senior community members earning 50% of area median income and handicapped community members. The property is nearly 35 years old and has yet to be substantially rehabilitated. It is nearing the end of its determined useful life cycle. The property stewards, Catholic Housing Services, proposed a substantial renovation as part of the Regional Coalition for Housing Arch Fall 2023 Housing Trust Fund round. This renovation will improve energy efficiency and extend the useful life of the property by 20 years. Redmond previously allocated funds to the renovation effort as part of that same Fall 2023 award process. And so on to the specific ask to council. The ask is to approve a motion to remove the city's reversionary interest from this property's deed. The existing deed contains a reversionary clause where the property reverts back to the city's control if the property is no longer used for affordable housing serving that specific population. So generally, a reversionary interest is just saying if X, Y, and Z are not met, then the original property owner regains control of that property. The why for removing the reversionary interest is to comply with HUD financing requirements. The financing is already in place. There is already a commitment for a HUD-backed private loan of about $6 million. However, while the loan is committed, HUD financing practices can't authorize it while this reversionary interest is in place. The what of the item has 2 potential outcomes. If we do remove the reversionary interest, the deployment of the finances can occur, and renovation could begin as early as Q4 2024. If we do not remove the reversionary interest, the HUD-backed loan will not occur, and either the renovation will then consequently not happen or have to be delayed with a whole new round of financing. So those are the outcomes from this item. Some key notes. There's no additional budgetary impact to Redmond. There's no additional funds being requested at this time. The renovation could begin later this year. And the ask to council is to place this item onto consent at the September 17th business meeting. With that information provided, we welcome questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lefcourt. It's always fun to have one of the city's best storytellers at the table when we're talking about deeds and things we don't touch very often. Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Thank you. Wonderful having you here at the table, both of you. Thank you for being here today. And I always have a deep appreciation for the level of detail, Mr. Lefcourt, that you bring to the table, so thank you for that. I know that when there are reversionary, did I get that correct? Reversionary interests that are applied to a deed, that there's typically reason for that, making sure that, of course, that the intent of the property, the intent of the prior owner is always honored. If we were to remove this reversionary interest, is there any cons? We see the pro, and that is then we've got HUD budget that we now have access to. But what could be the possible pitfalls if we remove this?
That is a great question, because this would remove that provision that kind of says this has to be used for this specific population, affordable housing. And while that would be removed, several new regulatory agreements would be put into place that ensure the property will serve that continued population.
Beautiful, thank you, because that was my concern, is that if we've got this put in place for a vulnerable demographic, then what do we have that is going to make sure that it stays within that? So thank you very much for that clarification.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. So continuing on that, because that was partially my question as well, so thank you, Councilmember Nueva Camina, for asking it so eloquently. I noticed in the original deed that it has a clause about members that are 62 and over. The memo says 65 and over, but the proposed language has 55 and over. So we're kind of all over the place on age. So one of those things that will be put into place, is it around aging population? Is that why these numbers are kind of shifting? And will the city still have any rights to that land, or will that land be turned over to Catholic Charities?
The city will, to the second question first, the city will still have that property retention. It just will not have the reversionary clause.
Got it.
So the reason of your first question, why there are many different ages,
Yeah.
essentially every funder who is a partner on this has different standards for which covenants, agreements, and so forth will apply. So for example, the HUD affordability covenant will be 55 and up.
Okay.
The King County affordability covenant will be 62 and up.
Okay.
Now, when these all stack, the most restrictive will apply. So whatever the oldest age is, that is the one that will serve as the enforcing mechanism.
Got it. So our city's initiative is 65 and over, even though the HUD requirement, we need to write the language so it's 55 and over. 65
Correct.
still counts, obviously, but that's why that language works that way. Okay. And the fact that we will still retain property rights is great. That was one of the major questions I had, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the council? I see a hand raised online. Councilmember Fields?
Thank you. Just to drill down a little bit on this contract workaround that you have in mind here, or this this clause. Basically it is a contract workaround. What are the consequences? You're going to put some protection in place so that the original intent is met by this property. I heard you say that. But I'm not clear on what the enforcement is or what the consequences are if it doesn't happen. What happens?
The binding covenants go with the land. So if they're not complied with, the issuance of things like permits to do the renovation could not occur.
So it's a non-starter. And then HUD is good with that. I got to admit, this whole thing sounds weird to me, that we're basically trying to get rid of a clause but keep the intent of the clause there. So and I'm trying to understand the strength of what you're putting in. So you're saying that the city now has control over the permits, and that's what they would do?
Correct. The city would have a binding covenant with the property that would impact the issuance of permits and other regulations. To your point about the nature of the request of, say, removing one piece and then adding a different component, there are many different partners with many different requirements. And this is the path forward that would yield the affordable housing outcomes we're looking for.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the strength of the protections. I know through some experience in the past that there are covenants in development agreements that are not enforced at the city of Redmond. So I'm just trying to understand the strength of the protection here. I'll do some research.
I'll just add, Councilmember Fields, and this is Jeff Churchill, that those binding covenants would be legally enforceable, and that the language that is in those covenants was reviewed and recommended by the city attorney as adequate to satisfy the city's interest in maintaining the affordable housing for those folks.
Yeah, and thank you, Jeff, because I appreciate that. That was actually one of my questions, and I forgot to ask it, so that's helpful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Council, for the conversation, and to the staff, thank you for not only ensuring that these 35 units today remain affordable, but then in 20 years, when the end of this building's natural life and extended life does come about, that we continue to retain and build upon those 32 apartments. So thank you. Are there any concerns, any objections to this item going to consent on the 17th? Okay, hearing none, we will have that back on consent, and I'll just state for the record, Council Member Salahuddin is now in the room with us. Nice to see you. The next item on our agenda is a resolution to reallocate a regional coalition for housing funds to Redmond Supportive Housing Project. Mr. Lefcourt and Mr. Churchill, take it away.
Hello, good to see you all again. This item does require a resolution. The previous item only required a motion. So this has an example document associated with the agenda item. That is attachment A. The recommendation reallocates that $3.3 million previously approved by ARCH, a regional coalition for housing, member councils, for the Kenmore Supportive Housing Project. Ultimately, the purpose of this item is to just authorize the reallocation of those funds from that effort, because of that location, to the Redmond project, with some slight considerations that have changed because we are in different jurisdictions. But it's materially the same development, the same effort. As part of any allocation of funds from ARCH, all member councils do need to authorize those Housing Trust Fund awards, hence why we're coming back. The initial funding was approved by the Redmond City Council on March 21st, 2023, with Resolution 1570. The Redmond Supportive Housing Project will create 100 housing units, affordable at 30% area median income. That's a really deep affordability level, one that we're trying to strive for with our housing growth targets. The ASTA Council is to place this item onto consent at the September 17th business meeting, and we welcome questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lefcourt. Council, are there questions on this item? Great. Seeing none, is there any, sorry, Councilmember Fields has a question. Go ahead. Councilmember Fields?
Yeah, thank you. I hadn't raised my hand yet when you said that, but that's interesting. You must be a mind reader, because I was looking for the button. Sure. So is this something that was overlooked initially when the council approved this? Or did we expect this action necessary all along? And there were a whole lot of other things, like a lease, a current lease on the property, and some other things. And I'm not sure that if council's been briefed on it, I might have missed that. But it seems like a decision was made. I was not there to vote on it, and I think I would have voted no given the lack of information available. So I'm curious as to how this was either overlooked or this was planned and just not made clear. So I know that's a fairly vague question, but I would still appreciate an answer.
Absolutely. The initial request that went to council and received approval in 2023 was to fund the site in Kenmore. Then things changed and the project moved to Redmond. And this is playing catch up to that decision to just move that allocated funds from that jurisdiction's funding to Redmond's jurisdiction's funding.
But when we made the decision to that moved it to Redmond, and I don't remember the date of that, did we not know that this action would have been needed at that time?
I cannot speak to whether or not council was explicitly informed of that decision, but we, as a city, would have known that any reallocation of those funds would need to go through council approval again. I do want to emphasize that this is not new monies. This is money that was already dedicated. We're just changing where it's ending up.
No, I totally understand that. Just wondering why it's being done after the fact and not before.
I can take this question.
Director Helen, welcome.
Yes, hello. I'm sorry, Seraphy and I are today attending a conference. We did know that this was necessary. It was one of the items that was outlined. There were several benchmark items. The timing was not entirely within our control because Plymouth needed to do their due diligence and their initial planning to ensure that the project that they were anticipating was going to fit on the Redmond site. And the timing of the application was really in Plymouth's hands. They needed to make an application to Arch. Arch took it through their community advisory board, and that recommendation was just recently endorsed and voted on by the executive board of Arch and is now being forwarded to the member jurisdictions. So it's basically following the timeline that we anticipated. It was just that the start of the timeline was triggered by Plymouth's proposal.
So in the decision earlier this year to fund the Plymouth housing in Redmond, you had made council aware that there was going to be lagging approvals that you expected or assumed would be made. That's kind of what I heard you say. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So what we said at the time was that we had brought the proposal to the Arch executive board before the council took their final action. I believe it was in February, because the interest was in making sure that there was not going to be opposition by the Arch executive board, who does make those recommendations to city councils that are in the coalition. And so what we told council back in February was there were several hoops that we needed to go through, and all of those process requirements would be exhausted and pursued diligently as any other project would. So, for instance, Plymouth has just recently applied for their permits, and they have to go through that permit process. This was one of the items that we knew we had to go through, and that the Arch executive board back in February all noted that they were in support of the relocation from the Kenmore site to the Redmond site. And so we disclosed to council at that time that we did not anticipate a problem associated with getting those monies reallocated.
All right. Thank you, Director.
Thank you,
And
Director Helen.
Council Chair, or Committee Chair, sorry, before you ask on which you will in a few seconds ask, is there any objections to this going on consent? I don't have an objection to it going on consent. I may pull it and vote no, and recognize that this is a prior council approved item, and for the sake of expediency when you ask the question, rather than me come back and say what I'm saying now. I'm just saying it now. So thank you.
Thank you. And for the viewing public, Council's last substantive update on the Plymouth housing that is coming to downtown Redmond was on July 16th. We had Plymouth here in the room with us to tell us a bit more about how their project is coming together, and they were here with staff having that conversation. I'm so sorry, there was another question on the floor. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. I have 3 questions just to confirm that I'm understanding this correctly. So I'll read it to you because I had time to write it down this time. So if I'm understanding correctly, the request is to redirect our portion of Arch's money, or Kenmore's portion of Arch's money to Redmond. And because we are members of Arch, we need to affirm the board's decision and recommend that we move the funds back to ourselves. Is that correct?
There's a little bit of a nuance to what you said. It's actually not Kenmore's money. It was money that was recommended to a project that was located in Kenmore. Okay. And it was basically contributions to that pot came from all the coalition members.
Got it.
When that was approved back a couple of years ago, it was for Kenmore. What's happening now is that same money in the same proportions from all of the jurisdictions is now recommended for reallocation to the Redmond location. And so that has to be approved by all the member city councils.
Thank you, and understood. Okay, so my next question is, do all members need to be affirmative, including Kenmore, in this change?
No, all members need to affirm in order to have their money dispersed to this project. So if one of the member jurisdictions were to say, no, I don't want the money going there, for instance, some amount of the money might be identified as being reallocated into Arch's pot, and then the money would have to be drawn from elsewhere. So for instance, if one of the points communities decided we don't want that money to transfer from the project that was proposed in Kenmore to the project that was proposed in Redmond, their whatever $11,000 or whatever it would be would not transfer, and we would look for other ways to fill that funding gap.
Thank you. And then my last question is, does this need to be an ordinance since we're talking about funding, or will a resolution be adequate?
Resolution should be adequate.
Thank you.
Yeah. That is how we typically adopt Arch funding recommendations, is by resolution, which is our historic practice.
Okay, and just because there's no changes to the budget ordinance for Redmond in this case, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much to the staff who are joining us remotely. Council, are there any objections to this item going to consent on the 17th of September? Wonderful. I am going to move us along then. Thank you so much to Mr. Lefcourt, Mr. Churchill. We are going to move on to the transportation portion of tonight's agenda. Item number 7 is the approval of consultant agreement with Enviro Issues for Go Redmond program refresh. Online, we have Linnea Taylor, and in the room, we have Michael Hintz. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Michael Hintz, Transportation Planning Manager. I'm here to introduce this item, and then I'll hand it over to Linnea, the city's Program Administrator for Traffic Demand Management, who will be presenting the Go Redmond website refresh contract between the City of Redmond and Enviro Issues. I got to say, we're really excited to give the Go Redmond brand and website another look and make any necessary updates so that it can be as an effective a tool as possible for connecting people to transportation options, including light rail. So we're seeking approval to move forward with the agreement and place this item onto the consent agenda on September 17th. Linnea.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, Council. As Michael mentioned, I'm here today to discuss the Go Redmond website refresh contract. And just as a little bit of background, Go Redmond is a shared branding between the City of Redmond, King County Metro, and Move Redmond. Go Redmond provides education, tools, and resources to anyone that lives, works, or visits Redmond to encourage getting around by not driving alone. Through a competitive RFP process that evaluated proposals from qualified vendors to aid in providing updated branding guidance, new website design, and social media and blog content, TP&E selected Enviro Issues as the best qualified vendor with a contract amount of $95,000. The last update to Go Redmond was done in 2015, when the transportation landscape in Redmond looked a lot different than it does currently, with the main focus at the time being incentivizing alternative commuting. And so the goal of the update is to create a fresh website that meets the needs of Redmond's post-COVID travel patterns. Commute trips remain important, always will be, but we really want this program to address all trip forms that happen throughout the day. We want to create a culture of behavior change. We're recognizing that even small changes could have large impacts on traffic, congestion, and travel behavior. With the extension of the 2-line in early 2025, the goal is to launch the Go Redmond refresh at that same time. So again, we're seeking approval to move this item to the consent agenda on September 17th, and I am here for any questions if anybody has any.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Are there any questions from the council? Councilmember Nueva Camina.
No question, just comment. Just thankful that we're doing this work now, getting ahead of it, playing some catch up, and also getting ahead before we open the 2-line in 2025. And I know that that commuters around will be very thankful for this refresh. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. Always happy to look at a scope of work for an area that I personally work in. So definitely on board for brand and voice refresh, and absolutely on board for website assessment. I know that's one area where we are really needing to focus and concentrate. So tasks 3 and 4 on here definitely seem like where I'm hopeful that we can spend the bulk of our initiatives for this. The visual identity, I think, is strong. So I know there's a large chunk of this scope that talks about rebrand, a new logo. I'm not it was redone in 2015. I'm not seeing the need for that, especially since the program in the pandemic essentially wasn't operational, and it will feel very new to community members. So very excited that we're getting on board with this, especially given all the new light rail connections and modes of transportation that are going to need to be utilized by our workers and community members. Just really hoping that we can dive into that task 2, 3, and 4. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the council? All right, I'll just chime in quickly to say throughout the summer, Linnea, Francesca, the team have been out so much in community. I run into them doing outreach events and whatnot, and no matter what tools and great new resources come out of this particular project, our number one resource is the team actually being out there, and I just want to share my support for what you all do. Council, is there any objection to this item going to consent on the 17th? Okay, we will have that one back. Thank you so much. Second to last item on our agenda tonight is the approval of a consultant agreement with Fair and Peers for support of the Transportation Master Plan update. We are joined at the table by Josh Mueller. Welcome, Josh.
Great. I will introduce this item as well. So Josh Mueller, our Senior Transportation Strategist, will be presenting this this next item, which is a contract with Fair and Peers to support the Transportation Master Plan development. Just as a reminder, the council allocated additional funding to the TP&E group to support TMP development. We thank you for that, and we're using a portion of that funding to hire some consultant support. So Josh will present details on the contract, including the contract amount, duration, and deliverables. And we're really pleased to continue our work with Fair and Peers. As you know, they've been assisting us with transportation demand modeling, the transportation facilities plan, and several other related efforts that relate directly with the TMP. So they'll be able to hit the ground running on this. Josh.
Hi, thank you, Council. Josh Mueller, Transportation Planning and Engineering. As Michael mentioned, the Council had allocated earlier this year $200,000 to help support funding to develop the Transportation Master Plan. A portion of that funding is going to be allocated, or is requested to be allocated, for consultant support on some distinct pieces for the Transportation Master Plan. TP&E, Transportation Planning and Engineering, issued a request for proposals on July 1st with a closing date of July 23rd, and Fair and Peers was selected as a consultant to help support. So this contract is to not exceed $160,000 and will support some of the following items. It'll look to develop the development of an integrated multimodal complete streets networks. We're also looking to get analysis of some of our pedestrian crossing gaps and also develop some sidewalk alternatives. Fair and Peers specializes in services that support greenhouse gas reduction goals, and so with this work, they'll be providing greenhouse reduction analysis for the city of Redmond. They'll also be supporting our future development, the transportation network, and support Redmond staff on communication and engagement support through next year. With all these things in mind, there's lots of pieces going on with staff work and other consultant works on the Transportation Master Plan, and Fair and Peers will be aligning all that work together to develop a draft Transportation Master Plan in the summer of 2025. So with that, we'd like to get started on this work as soon as possible, and so the duration of this contract would start in September of 2024 here and conclude in December of 2025. So staff are requesting that this item be included on the September 17th council business meeting for consent approval, and with that, Michael and I will take any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Josh. Any questions from the council? Okay, we've recently had a bunch of conversation on this topic, so thus sounds like the questions have all been answered. Thanks so much for bringing this packet forward. Council, is there any objection to this item going to consent on the 17th? Okay, we will have that back on the 17th. I noticed a familiar face on the consulting team, so eager to welcome him back as well. Thank you so much. We are going to go ahead to the final item. Josh and Michael are going to stick with us. It's the annual update of the 2025-2030 six-year transportation improvement program. Take it away.
Yes, thank you. So the Transportation Improvement Program, this is an annual update, and we're here to take any questions you may have that we can address in a staff report on September 17th. Recognizing that there are many transportation project lists that have been brought before this group, and there may be some confusion. Josh prepared an infographic that was included in your materials that hopefully clearly presents kind of how all these planning documents and like the comprehensive plan and the transportation master plan relate to these various project lists like the transportation improvement plan, the transportation facilities plan, and the capital improvement program. So hopefully that is clear. If not, we can answer questions around that as well. But I'll hand it over to Josh to talk more about the TIP.